Okay, welcome everybody. I'm 7 o'clock. Nancy Vandell, Chair of our illustrious Bylaws Subcommittee for the NCAC. And I think we had a few other people registered. And there comes Tom. So I think all of you have attended a previous, welcome Tom Sipe. All of you have attended a previous meeting of feedback session. So I'm just not going to go through the introductory presentation this time, just to welcome you all. Two of our committee members weren't able to come tonight. But I do want to introduce Bill Miller, who he and I partnered together on this Article 4, and Wyatt Angelo and Tom Sipe. And Wyatt is going to be our chat monitor tonight. So could everybody, all of our attendees, please introduce yourselves for the record?
Including the members,
including
you mean that?
Yeah, everybody else, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no one knows what order to go in, but I'm Jeff Weitzel, and I'm the secretary, which I think everyone knows, and the other officers are not here.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Perhodich. It's good to see you all, and I think Jeff Weitzel has become my idol because he's at everything.
He is, and he is our great support as
He
we
may
go
get
through this
frustrated.
process.
He may get frustrated, but he believes in democracy.
Yes,
that's a good thing.
I do.
Yes, thank you. And Anne, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Tom Sipe's wife, and I'm an interested observer.
Welcome, and you're welcome to give us your feedback too.
Thank you.
Bill Bush.
I'm Bill Bush, just another interested observer.
Nice to see you again, Bill, or at least hear you. Barbara.
Hello, everyone. I am another person from South Beach Road that's on this call.
Okay, Barbara Triplett, thank you.
Yeah, six of the 9 of us are from within a quarter mile of each other.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and we have 9 people, and 2 are Toms and 2 are Bills. So we're
And Barbara said she was from where?
I live on South Beach Road.
Yeah, we're literally within about 100 feet of each other. So
wow.
Okay.
Wow.
maybe 200.
Okay.
And in the interest of full disclosure, Bill Bush is my husband.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you both as in that capacity. So Sarah Apsher is going to be joining us later. Other than that, I think Jeff is representing the officers tonight. We have had conversations both on email and in executive board meeting and individually on the phone with the officers. So since this section really pertains to them. So I'm going to go ahead and just welcome you all. And the agenda tonight is that we're going to go through the Article 4 officer section in its, and then well, let me just go through. I'm not going to go through the agenda. I'm just going to get to the presentation here. Can you all see that? And I just brought up the wrong one, I think. Okay, which one are you guys seeing? Are you seeing one with little things on the side?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yes, we are.
So are you seeing presentation contents right now?
Yes.
Well, good. So Bill and I we're the two that, as you, I think, have heard on other sessions, because of Oregon public meeting law, we've broken these articles down into groups of 1 or 2, mainly 2, to work on them and then bring them to the full committee. So the status of this presentation tonight is that the full committee has approved all but a couple of areas that we'll talk about, and one suggested by Barbara actually, and we'll be discussing those in our bylaws committee meeting on Friday, but this is coming from the full committee. So basically what's happening, or this is a very long presentation if you got it off of the website, and I just uploaded a newer version that had a couple of slides. Tom told me, don't try to go back and forth between the presentations for the actual articles and the feedback sessions, and I did not listen to him, and I have understood why he is saying that now. But anyway, I added back in a couple of slides that had been deleted as I went back and forth. But page 3 is going to start the actual sections of the article that we'll go through. And then and then page 4, we're going to talk about the actual sections. And then page 24 is a clean version. So when we go to these pages, they're going to show you all the changes that we're making. The left side is going to show the new wording. The right side is showing what we changed. But if we go down here, page 23, it's the proposed text, the clean version of what we're talking about. So if you don't want to see all that red, you can go ahead and go down here. And then at the very end, on page 40, we have the original baseline text from the original document. And I won't say original, it's not the current bylaws, but Tom Sipe had taken the current ones and mapped them to Robert's Rules of Order and renumbered them. And that's what this version is. All right, so this article has 6 sections. Bill is going to discuss section 1, which is the introduction. I'm going to go through the duties of the officers, which is several slides. And then Bill's going to cover the next sections: nominations and elections, term of office, removal from office, and vacancies. Any questions about what we're going to be doing tonight? Okay, so Tom, take it away.
No, not me.
Sorry, Bill, take it away.
Taking it away. Two old guys with headphones, hard to keep them, keep them apart. So this is, I think, a pretty non-controversial section. We added it just to put context to the rest of the article, which goes through each of these different officers and what that officer does. So the first paragraph there, proposal 1, it just lists the various 4 or 5 officers that we have. And those are all officers that we currently have. We have added in the second, what are we calling these, Tom? Sections or subsections or?
Bullet.
Well, we have them numbered now.
Yeah, I think you could just call it a.
I'll call it, I'm just going to call it subsection.
Sure.
So in subsection 2, we did add a new officer, which is the immediate past chairman. And the reason was to allow the board to have the benefit of somebody that's been on the board, and sometimes that person's been on the board for several terms. And so at least for 1 year following the chairperson going out of that position, the chairperson would still be an ex officio officer and would provide whatever information the chairperson would want. We also added a parliamentarian. We have been, from the outset, trying to kind of mirror Robert's Rules of Order. So we have a, I guess, a clearer, more traditional set of bylaws. And when those bylaws are put in place at meetings and so forth, sometimes there's some question about, well, should we be voting this way or that way, or who should be speaking and so forth. And if questions come up like that, then the chairperson can have this parliamentarian available to answer those questions. And then we've also added communications coordinator who is appointed by and reports to the secretary and really sort of is doing a lot of the duties that the secretary previously had, because it was sort of an overburdening position. The secretary is still responsible for all of that, but has the benefit of having some help and able to officially delegate it to one or more persons if the secretary wants to do that. So if you look at the slide, this is the way they were in the past, and all the ones that have done will be coming up. All this red text is new. The black is text that was in the original bylaws. So for instance, subsection 5, there hasn't been any change at all. But this is included in the introduction.
Okay, are there any questions for Bill on section 1? I do want to note, we just put a note in here that there are different places where we've indicated more detailed information should go in the policies and procedures, and instead of writing it all out, we're saying P&Ps. So that's a document that we're looking at doing after the bylaws are completed, and possibly in sections either toward the end of this year or next year, that has more detail and is more easily changeable by the membership than bylaws are. So any questions? And I do want to say welcome, Sarah Absher joined us, the Director of Community Development in Tillamook County. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. Any questions on section 1? Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay, so I'll take section 2. There are several pages on this. We have the first officer is chairperson, and a lot of this is the same as in the original bylaws. The duties of the chairperson are to conduct NCAC meetings, be the official spokesperson of the NCAC, coordinate officers' actions, select representatives to attend meetings and hearings. And then here's kind of the big change, and it's rather than appointing subcommittee members, it's coordinating the activities of subcommittees and task forces. So the officers have all agreed that that the subcommittee members should be elected rather than appointed, and so that is kind of a big change. Also setting the agenda items in consultation with the executive board. Previously, it was under the secretary area for setting agenda items and the chairperson, and it would be in consultation with the entire executive board, which is a new section, a new article. Article 6 is the executive board, so that'll be coming up in another feedback session in a while. So are there any questions on Article 2A? Okay. Duties of officers, vice chairperson. Bill actually said we should be not calling people chairs, we should be calling them chairpersons. And so, yes, Tom?
I did raise my hand.
And sorry, we're going to do the chat, and I'm going to have Wyatt. Sorry about that, but I asked. Sorry.
I've already violated my scripture not to come up.
Okay.
But when you say this is not a criticism of anything, I just think it's kind of indefinite. On point 4 on 2A, select representatives to attend meetings and hearings. Of what?
Well,
you mean
that's
governmental meetings and hearings, or?
That's not new. That's in the current bylaws, so we didn't really look at it that carefully, to tell you the truth. Okay. It's so if anybody who's been around for a long time knows where people might be sent, it's possible if the chairperson, I know that there's meetings with Sarah from time to time of all the CAC chair people, maybe they would select someone to attend that in the chairperson's place, but That's a good question. I don't really know what they do. Jeff,
And
would
we
you
might,
know, or
we
Sarah?
might not know, Nancy. We could just say to attend relevant meetings and hearings.
Mhm.
I don't think we want to
Yeah, I'm
try to
just,
guess
Change
what
it.
they all might be, Tom.
yeah, I'm just thinking, you don't mean NCAC meetings. You mean something other than that, but,
Yes.
um,
So are you suggesting we say, so Bill Bush, you've been here a long, well, and Tom Prohodich, you've been around a long time too. Do you know what kinds of meetings the chairperson might be sending people to?
It could be a variety of things, but things like meeting with Sarah, the CAC chairs meetings, occasional meetings with the Board of Commissioners. And then beyond that, I remember being called to meet as a part of a committee setting up the South Tacoma County Emergency Volunteer Corps, meeting as a CAC representative. So
Okay, so should I say outside meetings? They're not necessarily
External.
outside.
External.
External meetings? Okay, that sounds good. Anyone object to external?
no.
Sarah has a chat here. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Wyatt.
I would leave it broad for public meetings and hearings. Largely, these are land use related.
Okay, Sarah, are you thinking rather than external, we should say something like that?
Or just public instead of external.
How about meetings of consequence to the association or to the committee?
You could say to attend public meetings and hearings external to the NCAC
Mhm.
or
Hello,
outside.
everyone. Oh, sorry, Tom. I did not want to interrupt your guys' conversation, so I put
Oh,
in
no,
the
no,
chat.
no, please, please.
I mean, yeah, I think actually what Tom just read, because it's going to be, most of the work the CAC does is land use related. But there may be Bill had a great example of the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps. So
Mhm.
some of them may be public, some of them may be more of a working meeting. So, I think you could put it either way.
Okay, does this sound right, everybody? Does this look good? Do you all see it?
Sounds like Sarah's saying public would be too narrow.
Yeah, it might be, yeah, you could say public, or I like outside too, or I don't know. I think it was left broad
For a
as it
reason.
was for a reason.
Mhm.
But yeah,
How about
it's up
how
to
about
you.
just meetings and hearings external to the NCAC?
Mhm.
I hate to, this almost, as I told somebody today, it's like writing the Constitution,
Yeah, it is.
And you only need a Constitution when there's the potential for disagreement. And so you want to get it as close to the wording as you can that'll prevent disputes.
Mhm.
But somebody could read that as that he's sending representatives to NCAC meetings and hearings.
Yeah, no,
But
this sounds good. So we've added and hearings, because I think before, no, it had, I'll have to go back and check what the wording was before, but to know if
So,
it's in red or not.
Nancy, may I ask, just thinking about some of the subcommittees that have had meetings in the past that did not have maybe an officer on part of the subcommittee, is it possible that the officers may ask a fellow officer to attend a subcommittee meeting too? So is it just external? It might be internal too, to the
It could be.
NCAC.
It could be. Since we're proposing setting up an executive board, the chair of any subcommittee is a member of the executive board, but it's possible that the chair would like to send somebody specifically to attend bylaws committee meeting. So Maybe we leave it the way it was. Good thought.
Or
What
we
do
could
y'all
just say-
think?
We could just say relevant. Well, I will tell you, I certainly was not worried that the chairperson would be sending representatives to attending NCAC meetings. I mean, that kind of is, that seems like
Shall
a
we put it
problem
back,
looking for
Tom?
a
Tom
solution.
Kurhodich, are you okay with returning it where it was?
Yeah, I hear Sarah's point. Or better yet, I accept her point.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Tom.
right. Thank you for raising it though. And I've kind of violated how we set this up, which is we were going to do all of this at the end of section 2, but I don't know. We've got such a small group. I think it's just as good to do this. So,
We have a chat
Right.
from Jeff Weitzel.
okay. What would you like to say? You want to read that or?
Yeah, I'll read it. I would just remove it. Does this need to be in the bylaws?
Well, it might be if it is an external area. I think it probably should be in the bylaws. Yeah. I hate to remove something that's already in there.
Oh,
Nancy,
I'm super in favor of removing things that are in there, but
Okay.
um,
Sarah was
if it's
gonna.
like if we don't need to explicitly give the chair this power, if the chair implicitly can just ask someone to do this, why does it need to be in the bylaws?
Sarah?
well, I'm just thinking if, let's say that the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps wanted to start a new working group to do something emergency preparedness related and said, we would like a representative of the NESCO and CAC to participate in this working group. Let's pretend it's not Bill, maybe it's somebody else, or we could even use something like that. Do you want the ability, if they reach out specifically to the NCAC, for the officer or the executive board to select someone to represent NESCO in those meetings? Like, what would be your way of deciding who to ask or who to go? Or what if you have multiple community members offer to represent NESCO in that position?
You know, I'm
in the
kind of
working group?
thinking it might be good to stick it under the executive board responsibilities that Wyatt and I are working on. What do you think, Wyatt?
It's not a bad idea, Nancy.
I mean, I think that makes sense, but I'm gonna make the argument that there are a billion things that like the bylaws do not need to anticipate every possible thing that could happen where the officers need to make a decision. And this can fall, like this seems like specific enough that and a special case enough that it falls in the category of just the regular operation of the chair and the executive board can figure it out. And then I'll leave it there.
Okay, so why don't I put that as a question mark? What do other people feel on this issue?
Well, since I just misspelled how to speak, I've been a lot of typing today. I think I don't believe it should be deleted because this gives explicit permission to be the voice of this organization. That is an official thing. And I think that really needs to be enabled. It's not just saying you're going to go to a meeting, you're going to represent this organization. Right. That's important.
Okay. What would you think of moving it to the executive board responsibility, Tom?
Don't care.
Okay. I kind of like the idea of it moving to the executive board myself. So we'll talk about that. Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Sorry.
Oh, I tell him to. Go for it. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm just sorry to have raised it.
Oh,
Because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking external to the NCAC. If I think the executive board, when you get to that, I mean, on the one hand, it would be nice when a committee's out of control, as sometimes has happened, to have the NCAC chair send a representative to that committee to try to figure out what's going on and report back. But on the other hand, it could get in the way of the subcommittee's work. And I think the executive board largely takes care of that problem, because if there are problems, it's going to be apparent to at least some of the members of the subcommittee who are going to appear at executive board meetings and report them.
mhm.
But I don't think it's that big a deal. It's just trying to get the right language.
Mhm. Okay, well, why don't we,
But
come back to it.
absolutely, I mean, Sarah's point about having a representative attend meetings and hearings and that come up that are outside the NCAC, that has to happen. Someone has to make that decision. The chair should make that decision.
Mhm.
I agree. It needs to be the chair because you don't want to have to wait for 2 weeks for a committee to meet
That's a
to
good
go
point.
ahead and do that. So I think it needs to stay here, thinking
Okay.
more about it.
Okay. So can people support leaving subsection 4 the same, original wording?
Yep.
Okay, we'll do a poll later.
Sure.
Okay, moving on. So vice chairperson, the duties of the vice chairperson were very, very small. And we wanted to give Alex a little more work. So where we have that, we added in that not only will they serve as chair in the chairperson's absence, and note, this came from Bill Miller, serving as a chair in a meeting is little c, and the chairperson is big C, the position. Absence, or for any reason that the chairperson needs to vacate the chair is what we added. So they already had serve as chair in the chairperson's absence. But we've added that if the chairperson's supposed to be neutral. And so if they want to take a position on something or introduce business, they would hand the gavel, the virtual gavel, over to the vice chair to do that business. And then we've added, instead of the current bylaws say assist the chairperson, and it had said chair, so we've changed it to chairperson, which is why it's in red, and the other officers as needed. So we've added in and the other officers. So that's really all that we've added for the vice chairperson. I'm just going to move on. Now we're getting into secretary. And thank you, Jeff. We've had quite a bit of discussion with Jeff on this area. So the duties of the secretary and the duties of the communications coordinator, which I guess were just set in a bylaws revision last spring, I just learned, were quite duplicative, and lots of conflicts over which position had what. All of the duties of the communications coordinator report basically are duties the secretary is generally responsible for. So we simplified the duties of the secretary somewhat and moved a bunch of them over to the communications coordinator. So the duties of the secretary, first one is the same: record minutes of general, and then we added and executive board meetings. And that should be in red because we now have those. Maintain records of the NCAC, including but not limited to, and we've left all of it except financial reports we added. The treasurer will actually produce the financial reports, but the secretary would maintain them as part of the overall record keeping. And then hold ultimate responsibility for NCAC communications, but shall delegate those tasks to the communications coordinators as described under that position. So the communications coordinator, one or more, would report to the secretary. So we can't see. And we've clarified that minutes of all meetings need to be maintained, well, not all, but need to be maintained. So like we have minutes in the bylaws committee meetings, the secretary wouldn't write those, but would maintain them, which he does a great job of already. And then just had a comment from Chris Silkowski earlier today saying that we should have a records retention schedule. And currently those aren't in the bylaws, but it would be something good to put into the P&Ps when we get to that. So we would make a note of that with a records retention schedule. Are there any questions about any of this? And Jeff, obviously, feel free to speak up.
I should have known this earlier, Nancy. Is the communications coordinator, is that isn't that a optional position?
Well, I think when you and I talked about that, Bill, it was and then Jeff and I talked, and the more he thought about it, the more he thought it should be a shall.
Okay.
That it would really help the secretary to have that position defined. Jeff, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, like I think the existing bylaws about the communication coordinator were sort of custom written for Dave Bennett and Biff Schlichting, and that you have a secretary and someone else stepped up to kind of who was interested in doing the website and stuff like that. And I think it would be great, but like now based on my personal experience, to basically set the expectation that we're going to go like beat the bushes for someone who is interested in working on the website and things like that. So and if there's not someone who feels like they have the skills, maybe there's someone who wants to learn.
So, and I'm sorry I hadn't gotten back to you on that, Bill. I thought I was getting everything back, but I really did not. So sorry about that. So sound okay to everybody? Okay, we'll be able to discuss more when we get to the communications coordinator part.
In that second line, I think I think that should be to the, not them.
It certainly should. Thank you. And I don't know why it's not going into the previous line. PowerPoint is just not happy with me right now. But anyway, it will look better when it's in a different format. Okay, treasurer. So there are quite a few changes to the treasurer area. Most of them are not anything terribly significant. Some of it's just rewriting. But in terms of the budget, right now it has the treasurer doing the budget. And I talked with Chris, we're suggesting that the budget be done as a group, as part of the executive board. It would be led by the treasurer. The treasurer would coordinate with the other officers for the preparation of the next year's fiscal budget. You're going to hear later on in here that we're recommending that the election of officers be held in April, and the budget would be passed at the June annual meeting. And one of the reasons is that the new board-elect would be able to work on the budget for the next year and also figure out committee members for the following year. So, but just basically that it would be coordinated with the other officers. And then receive funds of the NCAC. This is just a grammatical change. Deposit them in a timely manner. It was just a grammatical change. And prepare and present a written treasurer's report at scheduled meetings. Right now it says prepare accounts payable for approval at scheduled meetings. So Chris asked what that meant exactly. And I think we're just seeing it'll be in the P&P, but just a very simple report showing what the budget line item was, the what the expenditures were and income was for the period between meetings. That would be done. We heard some comments from people last year that they would have liked to have seen a written report. So that would just be something put on the meeting site along with other meeting documents. And then the item bullet 4 was just a duplicate of other, it's been moved to other areas. So there's another page of treasurer. Make an annual financial report to the membership that includes gross receipts and disbursements for the year at the June annual meeting. So the difference between the third item and this item is that this is the whole year. Looks at what was budgeted and what was spent, all of the checks written or all of the expenditures, etc. Item 5, this is not a change, it's just grammatical. Ensure that 2 officers sign all NCAC checks. Previous wording was ensure that the requirement that 2 officers sign all NCAC checks is followed. So Chris let me know that apparently they don't use checks, they use debit cards. And I just found that out this morning. And so he agreed we should probably look at that practice through the executive board. And I sent Sarah a question about that. So she's checking with county council. I doubt you had time to get anything back from county, did you, Sarah?
She's taking a call right now, Nancy.
Oh, is she? Thank you. Anyway, we'll see. Usually debit cards are not acceptable practice because the card can be stolen, the funds are lost. It's hard to have any kind of a paper trail on how the money is spent, but we have such a low budget, maybe it's not a big deal. If required by the executive board, ensure that financial records are audited by a volunteer selected by the executive board at the end of each fiscal year. So right now there's nothing about an audit. This is very loose language. If there's some reason to do one, it gives the executive board the authority to ensure that they're audited. So any questions about treasurer? Okay. And then Barbara on our call suggested at our last bylaws committee meeting having an immediate past chairperson for the first year of a new chairperson's tenure. And we discussed that. We thought that was a great idea and discussed it with the executive board at their meeting in February, earlier in February, the 20th, I think. And there was a feeling like that could be helpful for transition. As long as it was left to 1 year, the people felt like that might be a good idea. And it would be to advise the chairperson and other officers as requested, assist with transition to the new executive board. So any discussion on this new position? So thank you, Barbara, for that suggestion. Parliamentarian is a new position that we felt when we started this would be a good one to have, and the officers agreed. So Mark has been appointing Michael to be the parliamentarian at each of these general meetings that we've had, and I believe also at the board meeting. And it's helpful to be able to give advice when requested by an officer or the chair or a member, and if there's ever any issue. And so that's basically the first bullet. And then it also allows the parliamentarian to vote and take positions, but if they're going to take positions in debate, they need to hand the gavel or hand over the parliamentarian responsibilities to somebody else for that portion of the meeting. Any questions? So it's another new section.
Not a question, Nancy, but I just noticed in a couple places we have executive board capitalized and a couple we don't. See what was.
Yeah, I'm going to let Tom Sipe deal with that when we, because he'll be on that. Is that
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, that's fine. I just.
But thank you. Yes, Bill.
I wasn't suggesting changing it now, but you might make a note of that, Tom.
Be clear, consistent. Thank you. Yeah, Bill, it turns out, is an editor too. We have an abundance of editors, and he had also some great editorial stuff when we were going through, and I probably should have been more careful to change this. So thank you, Bill. Okay. Now we get to communications coordinator. So there are quite a few changes in this, and it's, if you'll notice, this is slide 1 of 4. So this function has gone from the officer Article 4 to subcommittees. It's back now at Article 4 for some good reasons. And it's a little strange, but we do have it as reporting to the secretary, and the secretary may appoint one or more of the communications coordinators. I did have a chat this afternoon with Alexis Tate, who felt like, why would it be in such an important function? Why would it just be appointed without membership ratification? So I'm going to bring that up. I think that's a point we should talk about and see whether or not we should have those positions ratified. When Jeff and I were talking about this, and please speak to this if you'd like, Jeff, there's some really technical components to this job, and it would be good for the secretary to figure out who he or she can work with, and but it might be good to have a ratification kind of a thing too. What do you think, Jeff? Putting you on the spot here.
So I'm definitely interested to see if more people share Alexis's opinion. My and like full owning that my opinion is colored by my position, so I am owning my bias. But I think it, like as I see it, the communications effort, it's just a lot of work. But you do want one responsible person, and that person is the secretary who is elected, and the other people are helpers, like who have a designated title and duty, but they're not like, I don't see ratifying or having those helpers approved as like, I don't see why that would be important. But if a lot of people think it's important, then maybe it's important. So.
Okay, Tom, I see your hand up.
I agree with Jeff on that point. The reason I raised my hand, though, is that if you go back, and I hate to do this, but if you go back to section 1, point 3, no, excuse me, point 4.
You're talking about section 1.4?
Yeah, we have there you have communication coordinators may be appointed.
Right.
But in the other.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shall, thank you. Yes, we had changed that. Did not do that consistently. Thank you. Okay.
Everyone needs an editor, or actually.
We've got a good group of them.
Everyone needs multiple editors.
We have a good group of editors here. Thank you. All right. And
We have a chat from Bill Bush. Quote, the position is a service position like a lawn maintenance person. Sorry about that, Jeff. The person does not need to be ratified by the membership.
Okay, so that sounds good. Thank you.
And
Okay.
I would just add along Jeff's lines that this is a person that's going to be working with and helping the secretary. So you would think you would want a person that the secretary would be comfortable with and would have selected.
Okay, so I'm hearing, so we'll go to a polling question, and when we get to the polling question at the end of this section, we'll ask for a poll, but I'm hearing a general agreement that people don't feel like we need to change this proposal as is.
Correct.
Okay. So the purpose of the communications coordinators is to assist the secretary with the communications and information technology needs of the NCAC. So there's slight rewording of the original text for that. The secretary has ultimate responsibility for the communication coordinator duties if a communications coordinator is unavailable or unable to serve. Okay, any comments? This last bullet should have gone in the next page. Okay, so the communications coordinator shall, this is the second page of 4, maintain the NCAC website, administer the NCAC website, video platform, meeting platform, Zoom account, and any other communications related. This was supposed to be some of the editing, I tell you. Okay. Video meeting platform, just making it more general than Zoom, and any other communication related electronic accounts. Otherwise, those 2 duties were already there. Maintain the NCAC electronic database and archives and facilitate access to the archives for NCAC members. Before, it was facilitate access for secretary, officers, and other contributors and volunteers as needed, but really it's for anybody, any members. Communicate the agenda, related meeting documents, and the registration link for general board and subcommittee meetings to the membership via email and by posting on the NCAC website. So with that one, there may be some other things in the policies and procedures on what gets posted. We moved item 9 into another item, so I'm not even gonna go through it. It's still there. Collect membership information as described in the policies and procedures. And so that's newly been separated out. And then page 3, post information about the NCAC periodically as described in the policies and procedures. Currently, it says at prominent locations within the NCAC boundary area of responsibility, but we're just moving the details into policies and procedures. But we do have a question that we wanted to ask all of you. Do you feel like it's important to still post in physical locations? Jeff has been doing this for every meeting, general meeting that's come along, and it's quite a bit of work. But what about as an alternative, posting in, say, 3 or 4 places, an annual poster saying, there is an NCAC, this is what it does, here's the website, and here's a meeting schedule for the year. Would that be something that might be useful rather than going out and posting every time? So we wanted to have a little discussion about that.
This is
Anyone
Tom.
have?
This is Tom
Mhm.
too. What does Jeff think?
So I don't know whether anyone looks at those and goes, oh, meeting, and then attends. So I think it's more useful to ask at a general membership meeting when there's more people. My assumption is that almost everyone finds out about the meetings via the email blasts. But I could be wrong about that. We don't actually know. So I would say we should ask the question when there's more people to ask.
And then also there could be people who aren't part of the NCAC that aren't part of the email blast list, even though it's quite extensive, that might want to see a poster and go, oh, that looks interesting. So Barbara?
And
Yeah, I think when new people come to Nesquin, there's some confusion about the NCAC and the NCA. We've heard that over and over again. But I think we could take a page out of their playbook. They usually have a booth during some of the big holidays in summer, where people can find out what the activities of the Nesquin Community Association happen to be. I would suggest asking the farmers market people if periodically they have a table that's devoted to public groups that want to get their message out. Ask if the NCAC could have a booth to share with people what the NCAC is about and get the message out that way. There's still people that I meet from time to time that have absolutely no idea what the NCAC is, and they've lived here quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Cool. It's almost like we need a marketing group or something, but that could be set up in the PMP later.
yeah,
Okay.
I think what this kind of points to is that physical postings are probably a weak effort at something that we ought to be doing in a more comprehensive way with maybe a subcommittee
Mm-hmm.
whose job is to send someone to the farmer's market and
Mm-hmm.
figure out like ways to publicize and how to get more activity in the community.
Would that be something to add to the communication coordinator job?
I think the communication coordinator job is really, or at least as we're conceiving it right now, it's really about maintaining the website, sending out emails, and administering Zoom meetings.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you, guys. We've got basically simplifying item 7. It just duplicates the secretary responsibilities. So upload electronic records for the NCAC to the NCAC cloud storage database and a local NCAC storage device is specified in the policies and procedures. And then leave out all the detail. Okay. Fourth one. Okay, so we've edited again to remove redundancy and improve clarity. So post notices of land use application meetings and related Tillamook County rulings regarding Nesquin area properties on the NCAC website. Facilitate communications among the NCAC officers, Tillamook County, and the NCAC membership, and relay relevant email to the appropriate officer or subcommittee chair. Item 10 and 11, both of those are redundant in other areas. 10, host or assist in hosting electronic meetings as needed. And the Oregon Public Meeting Law part is already in other parts of the bylaws. So that's it for the communications coordinator. And I put the slide in the wrong spot. So discussion of sections 1 and 2 in general. Does anybody have anything further that they would like to discuss? Okay, are we ready for a poll?
I'm gonna suggest that maybe with such a small group of non-committee members, we can just talk.
We could.
I mean, it's up to you, but I'm just putting it out there.
Well, we could. I think, yeah, because I'm just trying to think what the questions were. Now I remember. So basically, do you support the amendments that we're proposing in sections 1 and 2? And do you have any comments other than what we've already discussed?
This is Tom too. I do support them. I have one, I guess, concern is too strong. I hope Jeff can, since he shall appoint a communication person, that he can find such a person. It's not, because it's not a may, it's a shall. And I remember that when Biff gave up that position, we couldn't find anybody else to do it. Or the officers couldn't find anybody else to do it. So I think we just have to keep in mind that it may be hard to find someone that will take on all those tasks.
I think it's aspirational. And yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
but
it's also something where hopefully there's that S in parentheses is kind of big, that if it can be put down into smaller chunks, it could be something that we've got people who are retired that have this kind of a background who would be thrilled to do a small piece of it, not the entire piece because it's huge, but to be able to, right now, it seems like it would be awfully hard to find someone like Jeff to take over as secretary and do all of this. He's doing
no,
incredible amount of work.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just pointing out that it may not be that easy to find someone. I hope it is, because I don't want Jeff to have to do everything.
Yeah, but like I think we've got two scenarios to think about. One, where we have me, who happens to be pretty handy with this stuff. So and anyone who wants to volunteer, if they don't know about how to do it, but are interested in learning, I can teach them. And anyone who is interested in helping can lighten my load. So then great to have extra hands. If we can't find anyone, it's okay. If the next secretary does not have a strong technical aptitude, and then we really need someone to step up and perform those duties. So I think the shall is good.
I'm a little concerned about the shall. If it's aspirational, you maybe say should. The problem with shall, and I'm speaking in more formal documents, is that if you don't have that, you can't function as an organization. That's what a shall means.
Well, if
Well,
we have a
we have an off ramp there that says, if a communication coordinator is unwilling or unable to serve, the secretary will do it. So there is an exit strategy there.
and we could be in situations in the future where we are unable to function without that position. So
Yeah, and as Jeff pointed out when we talked, actually Tom and Jeff and I talked, and Tom Sipe and Jeff and I talked, that, you know, who would have guessed that you send out a request for people to serve on a bylaws committee and you get six people with qualifications that this group has applying, and there've got to be people who can do this if it's set out as an email blast. Hopefully, welcome, Michael. So Michael Beachley just joined us, and so anyway,
I'm going to tune in here and back up Tom Sipe. The word shall it's almost an imperative, and that's why we use may so often, so that in case something doesn't happen. Wow, that went over big.
well,
Well, I agree with me.
Yeah.
Tom likes that. So, okay, we'll play around some with the wording on shall or should or may or whatever, but I kind of think Bill Miller makes a good point that there is an off-ramp in the language, even though you've got a shall, you've got, if there isn't a way to fill that position, then it still falls on the secretary. Jeff, I know when we had talked, you had said by having it as a shall, you'd be more likely to go out and try to find somebody, and somebody else might try to do that too.
I mean, speaking to my own psychology, like I probably wouldn't bother to send it. Are you laughing at the cat? Speaking to my own psychology, like,
very pretty cat.
I probably, yeah, he's the best. Would not go to the trouble of trying to round up someone, but if come June I'm required to by the bylaws, then that'll kick me in the butt and I'll do it. So
okay.
I don't know, like, yeah, I might be a special case. I don't know if there'll be a secretary in the future who is similarly goes, well, I can just do everything myself, and then regrets that. But
the nice thing too about having multiple people, or at least one communications coordinator, is that it gets people involved again in a smaller piece, and hopefully could continue on in a different position or train people again to step up. So,
and that actually reminds me of something I was thinking of when talking about this with Nancy on Sunday, which I think is important, and it's kind of hidden under the bylaws. It's not what you want to say in the bylaws, but the place we really want to be is where there's like 3 to 5 people in the community who are active NCAC longtime members who can play this role and know how the technology works, because we don't want to be in a situation where no one can do it, and the website and the communications program kind of falls, like kind of withers away because no one's available, and then the officers get out of the habit of taking care of that. So,
and I think you used the horrible words like you got hit by a truck or something. What would we do? And so, yeah, horrible thought. So
yeah, there's that too.
None of that. Okay, any
Okay.
other discussion on this topic or any other topic that's been brought forward so far? Okay, let's go on to, I'm going to reshare and we'll go on to section 3 with Bill. Can everybody see? Okay. You're on, Bill.
I don't think you have it. All I see is NCAA Bylaws Subcommittee.
Huh, can everybody else see the
Yeah, I see
section
the same
3?
thing. It's, I'm not seeing the
Yeah.
whole window.
You're not, okay. Huh. Well. How about now?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Some again here is just sort of editorial, moving text from one part of the bylaws to another because it seemed to fit better in this place, or because Robert's rules suggested that was more logical. More substantively, the elections previously were held in June at the annual meeting, I guess, to for officers to take over shortly thereafter, the 1st of July. So the bylaws subcommittee here thought it would be better to have a more lead time. So we moved the election back to April and then allowed the officers that were elected to sort of participate, get ready, work on a budget and so forth in that interim period before they actually took over as the officers in June. We have a nominating committee that puts those names up, and we decided that a 14-day window instead of a 7-day window was better, give the membership a little more time to review them and so forth. We have left what was in the bylaws, an option for nominations to be made from the floor, assuming that the nominee is qualified, and I think the qualification would simply be that they're a member. And then we just took a kind of a technical parliamentary rule thing of if the chairperson is actually a candidate, for instance, they're currently the vice chair and they're going to become the chairperson or running for it, then the parliamentarian would run the election rather than the chairperson.
Okay, any questions on, well, let's go through the other slides and then go back.
Previously we had the secretary presenting the slate of candidates, but since there's a nominating committee, it made more sense to have the nominating committee chairperson present that committee's work. Again, in the second paragraph, more technical, balloting suggested only paper ballots. And so we changed it to voting, because you could have ballots or voice votes. Just trimmed it down a little bit, taking out the chairs. I mean, the names of the offices, because it seemed redundant to us. And then this last paragraph, if there is only one candidate for an office, a voice vote may be held. If more than one candidate, then a confidential ballot shall be taken. So that people don't feel like they can't vote for Tom or Bill or Wyatt or Jeff because they're their best friend, but they think they would do a great job. So, so we have a confidential ballot if there's multiple candidates.
So we have a question that just sent Sarah today, so about whether we can have confidential balloting done, because I think it was someone named Ben had brought it up in a meeting recently about when meetings used to be held in person, you knew how people were voting, but I'm not sure that was true for elections if there were contested elections, because people can feel intimidated if their vote is public on a contested election. And have you had a chance, Sarah, to get any word back on that?
Thank you, Nancy. I have not heard back from County Council. I will probably hear back tomorrow. So I will share that information with you.
Thank you very much. Sarah's had very little time to try to get that. So thank you so much, Sarah. Okay.
All right. The next slide here, we took out the first sentence because it's covered elsewhere. And then in the voting, we just tried to clean up the language a little bit. There's a majority, that person's a winner. If not, there'll be a runoff between the top two vote getters in the first round. That's essentially what it said in the existing bylaws, but we think it's a little less cumbersome or a little more clear now. And then what I had mentioned in the previous slide, that having this election in April instead of June gives the newly elected officers opportunity to plan for the year ahead. And that's what that sentence in red in the second bullet is all about.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about nominations and elections? Okay, we can discuss it later as well. Moving on to section 4. The other sections are all fairly short.
And here I will just mention that there had been a suggestion and discussion in the bylaws subcommittee that maybe the chairperson and vice chair would be elected at the same time, and then the secretary and the treasurer. But Jeff persuaded us that the way it currently is works better.
Yeah, actually, all the officers just were very lukewarm about
all the officers, yes. And who are we to question the wisdom of all the officers? So there's really no change here.
Yeah, the only thing we added was the elected to officers, because there are some appointed ones, and then it was moved from a different section. It had been in the first paragraph.
Yeah, I just said no substantive change.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is sort of I suppose a bit of a sensitive section that we're suggesting that there might be a need to remove somebody from office, but we weren't thinking of anything or anybody currently. But without this in the bylaws, we realized there was sort of if you did end up with some problem, we didn't have a way to cure it. So this is, I suppose, a bit like an insurance policy. We would never expect this to be used, but it's there if needed. And it wouldn't be used sort of haphazardly, because it takes a 2/3 vote to kick someone out. And we thought that was a sort of a sufficient deterrent for anybody who had some agenda against a particular person.
And Sarah's checking on this for us as well. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, last section.
And this is, again, just a clarification adding if there's a vacancy in one of the positions that's not, in the middle of a term, the general membership is going to elect somebody, but we thought since we have this nominating subcommittee, then the nominating subcommittee would be responsible for suggesting replacement or a name or names for the membership to vote on.
Okay, so that's it. Does anybody have anything they would like to talk about? I'm just going to run through and show you kind of what the new format looks like without all the red. And you can download this and see it. Didn't get that one changed. But, looks a lot cleaner without all the red. Okay, so Wyatt, do we have anyone in the chat?
We have no additional chat, Nancy.
Okay, I think Jeff, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, and I also put something in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
But yeah, I could just ask my question, which is, what's the trigger for a removal vote? I assume someone makes a motion or something, but it seems like that should be specified.
Yeah, that could be specified in the policies and procedures.
Would the parliamentarian have a comment on that?
Well, I think our intent is to leave it as open as possible. That's why it does say for cause or not for cause. And the trigger is, as any motion or any action is a trigger, and that is somebody rises and moves to remove somebody office. And there's obviously an opportunity for debate and discussion on that. And so whatever reasons will come out, there's just no way to make it comfortable when you do something like that. And so, but it is the right of the assembly to do so. I've never really seen something specific, Jeff, that would be in bylaws, but certainly it's something that we could talk about in terms of policies and procedures.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is that so if someone has got to be in their bonnet and wants to remove someone so that they would know what to do. Otherwise, they might be willing. There's a 2/3 vote, but what do I do?
And that's exactly why policies and procedures are going to be important and would be up on the website. And because we have this 14-day notice, it's not something that could be done willy-nilly in a meeting. It would have to be something where I would think when we write this in the policies and procedures, it would have to be something where someone would send a request or a motion to the executive board requesting that this be put on the agenda and be noticed as part of a regular general meeting.
What I have experienced in the past, Jeff, is that in situations like this that may be sensitive, the executive council or the executive board or whomever would share with the person bringing up the issue that if they choose to do so, speak with the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian has an ethical duty of confidentiality in such situations. So basically what that person is really doing is providing a procedure for getting this in front of the assembly and to a vote.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Michael. And I'm wondering too, if we should put anything where it's discussed with county first through Sarah.
That's a very good idea. Yes, that's a very good idea. But I still think it's policies and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, question for you. Were you concerned about an event that would trigger it or the basis for it?
I'm concerned about if someone is really upset with the chair, and that's happened, like, and we've all so going back a few meetings, we've had situations where someone wanted to amend the bylaws, they didn't read the bylaws, and then tried to do it in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that time is behind us and we'll all be in flowers and love and no conflict. But if it comes back and we have people who are really upset with any officers, I think having it really clear what the steps are, and maybe if it's not written in the bylaws, because and elsewhere we've said like as specified in policies and procedures, or at least that's been in proposed language, and maybe we put that here too.
That's a good
So
idea.
Because
it's
it
the
sounds
steps
like
you're concerned about, then the procedural steps to do it.
yes,
Thank
and
you.
because it sounds like this actually sounds like there's a lot of steps that it has to be noticed, because I think we want to if we're going to remove anyone from office, probably you can't do it in the same meeting that it gets brought up. That makes total sense. And so it actually probably wants to have a fairly specific set of steps. So
Well, there's a class of issues that you're touching on, Jeff, and they are procedures to deal with grievances of one sort or another. And it may not be simply removal of office. It could be a procedural thing. It could be something else that we haven't identified or even thought of. And again, in the policies and procedures, grievances could necessarily be a procedure that's outlined there. For example, and I'm not arguing this, I'm not proposing this, I'm just suggesting the possibility that that the chair or somebody is designated to pick 3 people to hear the grievance, or something of that sort, so that there is a process where the person has his or her opportunity to clarify and share their grievance, and ask that it be dealt with the assembly. That's
Sarah has chimed in here with a comment, and I'm not sure exactly what it's directed to, so maybe she should be allowed to expand on that.
Of course, Sarah.
Oh,
Are you there, Sarah?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I am having a little bit of a time hearing. Can you
Oh.
please repeat the question?
We're wondering, you said in the chat, sounds good, and we're wondering what if you'd like to comment on the removal from office section.
Oh, no, I said that about the comment of having me track down to visit with county council about the previous.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I do think, though, that we would add in the policies and procedures, Sarah, that part of that would be a check with Killington County before trying to have anybody removed. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah.
And Nancy, in section 6216 in the Robert Rules book, it has a discussion of the procedure that would be followed.
Okay, thank
We
you.
might crib some
Note.
of that.
I think so. Thank you, Bill. I think you have become our resident expert in Robert's Rules. Okay, so what section was that?
6216.
62.16.
Yes.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, any other questions or comments about any of this? Sections 1 through 6 of Article 4. Wow. Okay, can you support the recommendations as we've discussed? And I realize there are a couple that didn't actually get resolved, but Jeff is holding up his thumbs. Thank you. Any objections? I can't see everybody. Let me stop sharing. Then I can see. Oh, look at that. Okay, we've got some thumbs raised with Barbara and Bill. Anne, Bill 1, Bill 2, Tom 2.
Get to vote.
No, we don't get to vote. Okay. And thank you all. Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to say at the end here? I'll put you on the spot. Oh, we got to see Jeff's cat and Sarah's puppy.
This is Cooper. No, I just want
Aw.
to thank you all for all of your hard work and everyone for attending these meetings. Thank you.
Well, thank you for participating so closely.
Sure. I'm
All
going to
right,
turn
if
the
there-
camera off now.
So our next meeting is on, well, our bylaws meeting is on Friday morning at 9:30, if anyone would like to join us. And our next feedback session is on Saturday at 2. We're going to talk about Article 5 meetings. Lots to contain exciting information in Article 5. So thank you all very much, and we will end the meeting at 8:20 p.m. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nancy.
I'm going to stop recording
Thank you.
if I can figure out how to stop recording there. There it is.